Now, before I run out and get my haircut, we have to talk about this. Jim Carrey blowing up Hollywood, exposing all of its secrets as a satanic actress tunes in and is mortified by what she's seeing. There is a bunch of new footage inside of this one. Thank you guys for subscribing. Let's take a look.
Every time a woke or satanic actress tried to bash Jim Carrey, watch what happens. So years ago, if you remember, Jim Carrey stood on live television and drew a symbol on the floor that made a talk show host's face go pale. He named names. He called out a whole system right there in front of a live studio audience. And then, right in the middle of a sentence, his phone rang. Everything he was saying just stopped, like someone flipped a switch. You are about to see every one of those moments back to back with the real footage. And by the end, you will understand why one actress cannot stop watching and why the internet still has not stopped talking about that phone call, even all these years later.
Now, we know Jim Carrey has been exposing Hollywood for years. It's no secret. It's something we've talked about quite a bit here on the channel. But what he's saying here today is just a little bit different.
Before you judge anything you are about to see, you need two facts straight. First, the Epstein files are real. They are public now, and they name people who used to be untouchable.
Yes.
Reporters, investigators, and regular people online have gone through them line by line. Second, for over a decade, people called Jim Carrey crazy for the things he said on camera. He talked about the Illuminati. He talked about sitcoms being a distraction. He talked about secret rituals in the woods. Everyone laughed it off and moved on with their day, treating it like just another celebrity meltdown. But here's the thing. Some of those crazy comments now line up almost perfectly with what the files actually show, years later. This video is not about attacking one actress or one actor. It is about a pattern. A pattern that runs through Oprah, through Naomi Campbell, and through the man who kept pointing at it years before anyone wanted to look. Watch how often the timing keeps repeating itself. Keep that in mind as you watch each clip, because once you see the pattern, it gets very hard to unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you start looking at every talk show appearance a little differently.
And I think that's something that we've been doing lately with all of the current findings relating to Dirty Hollywood and to the Epstein files. We sit back and we watch some of these interviews that happened years past, and we have a new light shed upon them, and we're actually seeing them basically through a different set of eyes.
So let us start where it all began, on live television, in front of a studio audience that thought it was just watching a funny guest segment. Rewind to 2014. Jim Carrey is a guest on Jimmy Kimmel Live, sitting across from Kimmel with a studio audience watching every move. Out of nowhere, he draws a symbol in the air and on his hand. He calls it the all-mocking tongue. Then he looks Kimmel dead in the eye and tells him he is part of the Illuminati.
We've seen this before.
Is that a gang sign? Have you,
Oh, like you don't know what it is.
Yes, on live television, right to the host's face, in front of cameras that were rolling for the whole country to see. He does not stop there. He says talk show hosts, sitcom actors, and TV personalities are hired to keep people laughing so hard they forget to ask real questions. He even jokes about people gathering in the woods to make big decisions, all while grinning like it is the funniest thing he has ever said.
Seriously, the time is up. People are hip to this kind of stuff. I'm here tonight to blow the lid off it, to be the whistleblower. I'm sick and tired of the secrets and the lies. It is the secret symbol of the Illuminati, and you're a part of it, and it is the all-mocking tongue.
Here's the part that gets people talking even now.
Now, it's funny because he's sitting there making jokes, but he's actually speaking the truth. The audience doesn't know, but the host does.
People who were actually sitting in that studio audience that night said the room was dead silent. No laughing, no clapping. All of that sound you hear in the clip was added in later, during editing, to make Jim Carrey look like he had lost it. Think about that for a second. Somebody wanted this moment to look like a joke, even though the room itself did not treat it like one. That single choice, adding laughter that was never actually there, tells you a lot about how badly the industry wanted this moment buried under a punchline. It is a small detail, but small details are usually where the truth hides. Just when Carrey is pushing harder, naming things nobody in that industry ever says out loud in public,
Years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh.
So he said, hired by the government, in comes laugh track, which apparently wasn't actually happening. There was no laughing going on.
Stuff like that make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. You know, and they get out there in the woods in a circle naked and they decide these things. And, you know, look at him trying to.
We can assume that every time a laugh track is inserted, truth is being told, and it's trying to be covered up with the laughter.
his phone rings, right there, on camera, in front of everyone.
Hold on a second. You know what they're trying to do? Who? This thing is buzzing. Hold on. They're trying to turn us into, consumer drones.
He picks it up, and just like that, the conversation is over. No more Illuminati talk, no more exposing anything. The whole segment just quietly moves on, like nothing happened. Was it a real call? A warning delivered live, in front of a studio full of people? Nobody knows for sure. But ask yourself this. Why would a single phone call end a conversation that fast, on live television, right when things were getting real? People are still talking about that moment years later. And when something sticks in people's minds that long, it is usually because the timing felt like more than just a coincidence. Whatever was said on the other end of that call, it worked. The subject never came back up that night, and Jim Carrey moved on like it never happened. The curtain came right back down, exactly the way it always does in that industry. Now jump over to the Ellen DeGeneres show.
Oh boy.
Jim Carrey does it again. This time, he draws something on the studio floor that looks a lot like a 666.
That's Jim Carrey's artwork on our floor that will be there forever now.
Forever and ever.
All right. And
Yep.
So it is the characters. It's Dumb and Dumber 2.
That's right.
Yeah. Very.
Me and Jeff.
Ah,
That's right.
is it though?
Yep.
Very.
It's just another shameless plug.
That will be there forever. I don't know why more people haven't thought of that when they.
Watch Ellen's face closely in that clip. Her usual calm, put-together TV smile completely breaks. For a second, she looks genuinely rattled. Back then, everyone laughed it off as another one of Jim's bits, packaged as harmless comedy for the cameras. Nobody is laughing at it the same way anymore, especially
I wonder
once
what
you
that
line
was.
it up with everything that came out later. What looked like a harmless bit at the time now looks a lot more like a message hiding inside a joke. Here is where the pieces start connecting. Jim Carrey always said the people inside the industry know exactly what is going on. They just choose to stay quiet about it day after day. One name that came up once the Epstein files became public was Naomi Campbell.
You guys managed to make it clear that you were not aware of Epstein activities. Did you know who he was?
Yes, I knew him. I was introduced to him on my 31st birthday by my ex-boyfriend Flavio. He was always front and center at Victoria's Secret shows.
Did you suspect what he was doing?
No. And what he's done is indefensible. And when I heard of what he'd done, it sickened me to my stomach, just like everybody else.
You think that she actually didn't know what was going on with Epstein, Naomi Campbell? She had to know.
Because I've had my fair share of sexual predators, and thank God that I had good people around me that protected me from this.
In that clip, Naomi denies having any real connection to Epstein at all. She sounds confident, almost offended by the question.
Recently released documents about convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein by the U.S. Justice Department repeatedly reference British supermodel Naomi Campbell. A New York Times review of the documents found that Campbell's name appears in nearly 300 files, alongside other powerful figures linked to Epstein. Emails show Campbell requested flights on Epstein's private jet and planned visits to his New York mansion, often coordinated by his longtime assistant, Leslie Groff.
Now, if she had been in the files 300 times, that's not claiming any guilt there. But if she's requesting flights and to go to the New York mansion or the New York townhouse, that's strange if she couldn't see the signs.
In interviews, victims told federal investigators that they saw Campbell at Epstein's mansion and private island and said he introduced her at social gatherings. According to the interview transcripts, Epstein would name drop Campbell when recruiting young women, suggesting she could help them launch modeling careers.
But according to reports, her name shows up in those files over 300 times, tied to flight records on Epstein's private jet. So on one side, you have a public denial. On the other side, you have documented records telling a very different story. That gap between what someone says and what the paperwork shows is exactly the kind of thing Jim Carrey kept hinting at over and over again. And once you notice that gap once, you start noticing it everywhere else too. It shows up again and again as you keep going through this list, almost like a signature left behind by the same pattern. Deny in public, then get exposed later. That is the cycle you are about to see repeat itself again and again. Now here's the part that really gets people talking. Oprah Winfrey.
I was, needless to say, devastated and really shaken to my core.
We have a good one that either just came out or is coming out. I'm not sure where it's going to drop on Oprah. It's actually crazy, the information in that video. Make sure you don't miss it. The best way is to subscribe so you don't miss out on anything.
Winfrey said she was disappointed in the former headmistress.
And you were devastated because the cat was out of the bag. People started to find out what the heck you doing. Everybody, you and Ellen. Ellen done left the country. She's supposed to be on her way back, y'all. It's safe? Don't nobody want you back, girl.
And was actively involved in covering it up.
I was, needless to say, devastated and really shaken to my core.
Oprah spent decades building an image of being generous and completely trustworthy. Her Leadership Academy for Girls in South Africa was supposed to be her greatest gift to the world, the project she talked about with the most pride. Then, a matron at that very school was accused of physically and sexually abusing students there. Oprah only spoke up publicly once the story had already exploded in the news. That timing bothered a lot of people, and the matron was never imprisoned. It does not stop there.
John of God and Oprah Winfrey's former spiritual healer has been sentenced to 99 years in prison after being found guilty of heinous crime trafficking operation sold to childless couples. Now, how you kicking it with a cat that's doing all this shit and you ain't peeping game? You ain't seeing this dude's moves? This guy right here, man, damn, 600 women and young girls, that's a whole lot.
Oprah personally endorsed a man named John of God, a faith healer, to her huge global audience. He was later arrested on charges of trafficking. His name has since been connected to Epstein's circle inside the files themselves.
Have a kind of a monopoly on this genetic perfection, and we want some of that. So, girls, for $100, we would pay you for your egg.
$100? Monkey.
So how much do you want for it? Let's bid. I bid $500 for the Olympic.
Then there is Peter Nygard, another guest who appeared on Oprah's platform, later caught on camera allegedly bribing a woman over her unborn child. Now, none of this alone proves anything. Courts decide guilt, not a YouTube video. But when you line up the school scandal, the John of God endorsement, and the Peter Nygard connection, it is hard not to ask one simple question. How could she not have known?
Is Oprah the satanic actress that they were speaking of in the start of this video? We're not yet sure.
The woman who built her entire career on speaking up for people has gone remarkably quiet since those files dropped. And that silence says just as much as any interview would. Jim Carrey once said the smiles in this industry are rehearsed, and the silence is deliberate. Right now, Oprah is giving us both at the same time, and people watching have noticed exactly that. This next part is one that people forget, or maybe we're made to forget. Back in 2009, a young model named Gabrielle Rico Guarantano came forward with a horrifying story about a party she attended and what happened to her there. Watch her closely in that clip. She looks genuinely traumatized. At the time, most people wrote her off as unstable and moved on with their lives. Then she was arrested, and then she disappeared completely. To this day, nobody has ever found her. Back then, the world was not ready to believe her. The Epstein files had not dropped yet. The dots were all there, but nobody was ready to connect them. Now, it does not sound far-fetched at all. Now we know what those flight logs reveal, and what hundreds of file mentions actually mean. She spoke up, and she vanished. Jim Carrey spoke up, and his phone rang. Two very different outcomes, but maybe the same machine sitting behind both of them. And maybe the only real difference between those two outcomes is the size of the platform you are standing on when you decide to speak the truth. It is a heavy thought, but it is worth sitting with for a moment before we move on to the next part. One more strange moment worth mentioning here. Barbara Marx Hubbard, a well-known author and public speaker, the kind of person the establishment holds up as thoughtful and visionary.
We are the first species on the face of this earth to be aware of evolution, to be aware that we are affecting our own evolution by everything that we do. The babies we eat, the food we eat, the wars we fight.
Did she just say the babies we eat? What?
During a speech about human evolution, right in the middle of a sentence, she casually says the words, "the babies we eat." Just like that, like it belonged in the sentence. Now, ask yourself honestly, when is the last time you accidentally said something like that mid-sentence, in front of a live audience?
At all.
People tried to explain it away as a simple slip of the tongue. Maybe it was. But moments like this rarely happen alone. They sit inside a much bigger pile of slips, symbols, and sudden phone calls that end conversations before they finish. Year after year, everything Jim Carrey said on that Jimmy Kimmel stage keeps getting a little clearer and a little harder to laugh off. The industry keeps people laughing, keeps them distracted, and keeps them looking one way while everything that actually matters happens somewhere else.
And that's the big story here. Hollywood is a big distraction. They put distractors in place so that we don't know what's actually going on. Ellen DeGeneres, Be Kind, Oprah Winfrey, the one that's there to just be the helpful motherly figure for everyone and give advice to people. Both very evil, both connected to dirty Hollywood and to Epstein. And people like Jim Carrey are here trying to let everyone know and warn everyone about it. The question is, are you now listening?